How colonial trade made Europe a global power. The lie about Europe's rise. Everything you were taught about Europe's rise starts in the wrong place. Europe didn't dominate the world because it was ahead. For most of history, it wasn't. It didn't invent more. It didn't produce more. It didn't even trade more. So how did a relatively poor region end up controlling global wealth? By doing something far more powerful than innovation. It redesigned how trade works. And once trade was redesigned, the outcome was inevitable. This isn't a story about empires, it's a story about a system. And if you live in the modern world, you're still inside it. Part 1. The ocean became Europe's weapon. For centuries, Europe was trapped. Land routes were controlled by others. Merchants paid tolls, paid taxes, paid tribute, and yet profits went elsewhere. Europe looked outward. It looked to the ocean. The ocean erased borders. It erased limitations. Suddenly, distance became advantage. Ports became power. Ships became the new armies. Control the route, control the profit. Europe didn't need to conquer the land. The world came to it instead. And this shift changed everything. Borders no longer mattered. Borders became lines on a map. Trade became the battlefield, and whoever controlled it controlled the future. Part 2. Trade designed to take, not share. Colonial trade wasn't exchange, it was design. Every rule had a purpose. Every rule favored one side. This wasn't about growth for everyone, it was growth for one. Resources moved outward, value moved inward. Nothing flowed by accident. Trade looked neutral, numbers looked clean, contracts looked fair, but control was hidden inside the process. Who decided the price? Who owned the ships? Who controlled access? Europe. Colonies didn't choose what to sell. They didn't choose when to sell. They didn't choose who to sell to. They produced. Europe profited. Raw materials left. Finished value returned. Cheap in, expensive out. That difference wasn't a mistake, it was the system. Trade wasn't about competition, it was about dependence. Once a region depended on selling, it lost the power to decide. Once a region depended on buying, it lost the power to negotiate. Europe didn't need to force obedience, trade did it automatically. Prices were fixed, markets were controlled, alternatives were blocked. Growth was allowed, but only up to a point. Never enough to challenge the center, never enough to catch up. This is how extraction works, not by stealing everything, but by deciding what's allowed. Colonies stayed busy, they stayed productive, they stayed exhausted, but they never accumulated power. Trade made it look voluntary. It made exploitation look like choice. It made control look like opportunity. This wasn't free trade, it was guided trade. Trade with boundaries, trade with ceilings. Europe didn't just participate in markets, it designed them. And once markets were designed, results were guaranteed. Sell low, buy high, repeat forever. This is how wealth concentrates. This is how gaps widen. This is how power compounds. Not through violence alone, but through systems that run quietly. Trade became a machine, and once the machine started, it never needed permission again. This wasn't capitalism. This was control pretending to be exchange, and that illusion is why it lasted so long. Part 3. The cost, labor and human engine. Trade needed labor, labor needed supply, and supply had to be predictable. This wasn't about people, it was about output. Human beings became inputs, measured, counted, replaced. Ships didn't just carry goods, they carried labor, they carried suffering, they carried silence. Every body had a price. Every movement was calculated. Every loss was expected. This wasn't chaos, this was planning. Planning scaled suffering. Pain became data. Endurance became productivity. Survival became irrelevant. The system didn't ask who lived, it only asked how much was produced. Work never stopped. Exhaustion was built in. Rest was a cost. Lives were shortened, but output increased. This is how the machine worked, not with rage, not with emotion, but with indifference. Violence enforced obedience, accounting enforced efficiency. Human effort was standardized, broken down, optimized. The world became a worksite, and Europe controlled the schedule. Labor wasn't just exploited, it was engineered. And once labor is engineered, profit becomes predictable. This is the hidden engine, the part that never appears in trade statistics, the cost that never shows up in ledgers. Trade looked profitable, growth looked impressive, but behind every shipment was a human body paying the price. Part 4. Systems, companies, and invisible power. Europe didn't rule by force alone. That was too expensive, too visible, too unstable. So it built systems instead. Systems don't shout, they don't march, they don't look violent. They look organized, they look efficient, they look neutral. Power moved from kings into paperwork, into contracts, into permissions. Companies became tools, then tools became rulers. These weren't ordinary businesses. They didn't just trade, they governed. They decided who could sell, they decided who could buy, they decided who had access, and access became power. You didn't need soldiers everywhere, you just needed approval. Approval to trade, approval to ship, approval to participate. If you lost access, you lost everything. This is how power scales, not through occupation, but through dependence. Trade routes became choke points, finance became a gate, law became enforcement. No empire needed borders, the system was the border. Companies enforced rules without appearing to rule. They collected value without appearing to take. They extracted wealth without appearing to extract. Power became invisible, and invisible power is the strongest kind. It doesn't trigger resistance, it triggers compliance. People obey what they depend on. Europe didn't need to own land, it owned the framework, and whoever owns the framework decides outcomes. When systems are built this way, they outlive empires, they survive revolutions, they survive independence. Flags change, governments change, leaders change, but the system stays. And as long as the system stays, power keeps flowing in the same direction. This was the final evolution: control without visibility, power without presence. And once power becomes invisible, it becomes permanent. Part 5. The system never left. Colonialism ended, at least on paper. Flags were lowered, borders were redrawn, independence was declared, but the system didn't disappear. It didn't need to. Trade routes stayed, ports stayed, financial centers stayed, the rules stayed. The same paths, the same flows, the same direction. Only the names changed. Europe didn't just build power, it preserved it. Because once a system is built, it doesn't need force to survive. It runs on habit, it runs on dependency, it runs on necessity. Countries kept exporting, kept importing, kept borrowing. Not because they wanted to, but because the system allowed nothing else. This is how the past controls the present, quietly, automatically. No one needs to conspire, no one needs to plan. The system does the work. Every shipment, every contract, every price, all echo decisions made long ago. This is why inequality feels permanent, why catching up feels impossible. Not because effort is lacking, but because the game was finished before it started. History didn't end, it hardened. And the world you live in is built on those foundations. Not visible, not discussed, but always present. This is the real legacy of colonial trade, not the past, the present. And once you see the system, you can't unsee it.